Welcome back, party people. We're going to continue on. We're going to talk about some other great historical figures that have made a strong influence in history. I think one that we should probably talk about, going all the way back in history, is one who's prominent today, actually. Mr. Alexander Hamilton himself. Now, I have seen Hamilton by the Lin-Manuel Miranda. I think it's good. I think it's interesting. Everyone's like, oh my god, Hamilton's this great, political leader and figure, and he's such a complicated human being for me. Because every time I think about him and I look at him and I read a book about him, I'm like, he is unequivocally brilliant in so many facets. He's also arrogant. He's also wild, radical. He's also focused and determined, and probably one of the bravest human beings you're bound to meet in your entire life. He lived a very complicated life as well. Life of rich travels, of prominent success, of scandal and failure, and is someone who I think is being remembered pretty positively. And I think his legacy is just much more complicated than that. Like, we look at Thomas Jefferson so negatively in so many aspects. We still hold a lot of the Jeffersonian ideals, but for the most part, I think a lot of people tend to try to be more balanced when it comes to Jefferson, but not Hamilton. But who is he and where did he come from? I think that's the question everyone wants to know. The big Hamilton book you see in, I forgot who the author was. He wrote a very good book. The author and historian that wrote the big Hamilton book. It's like 800 pages long. Who is just a very biased individual. I'm just going to point that out there. Not to be rude to him, but sure. Carol, I haven't used you in a while, so I might as well use you too. Oop, gotta fight. But that book in particular is a very complicated and very deep book. Can I just beat up bad guys? Okay, there we go. It's a weird looking team right there. I don't know, the rain effects in this game are really all over the place. But anyways, Alexander Hamilton was born in Charleston, the capital in the British Isles, Leeward Isles, I believe. Bahamas, basically. He has an older brother, James, who he would never see once he reaches like 15 years old. Long story there. But he was born out of wedlock, famously. do 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 do. Hmm. Yeah, I never played XCOM, but if it's anything like this, I feel like I would enjoy XCOM a little bit more in this game. You know, not to be rude to this game, just I feel like XCOM's probably perfected the formula a little bit better than this game has. He is of, I think, Irish descent specifically, or Scottish descent. He has a lot of different things around. A lot of people attribute like, oh, he's a little bit browner than. No, he's pretty white. I'll put it that way. If anything, his mom's name was Rachel Levine, so I think probably a little French in him too. But born out of wedlock, his mother ends up marrying a guy. What was his name? Basically, she met a guy named James Hamilton. They end up getting married, and he ends up taking his last name. That's where Hamilton comes from. Can I get it? That's death for you. It's 2, right? Basically, complications came about with his family. He ends up basically getting apprenticed by a merchant. His brother James was apprenticed by a local carpenter nearby in the Isles. They were separated and really never seen again. They never really saw each other again. But Hamilton, working with the merchant, became a clerk, learned economic trade, knew what the difference between what a tariff was and imports, exports, and all that. And he was basically running the company by the time he was like 13, 14 years old, at least the back financial accounting aspects of it. Ends up being allowed to let's just put that there. Man. There we go. Seeing the potential in Mr. Hamilton, though, the merchant ends up sending him to the colonies, specifically to Boston, over some time. He ends up getting many brilliant opportunities. Can I just get rid of this card? Thank God. Let me get rid of this card. I will take it. Lash you doggos. Again, hyper intelligent by this point, self-taught how to read, write, do all these things for the most part. He did have private tutoring, don't get me wrong, but he was just a highly intellectual and capable individual and fellow. Actually, maybe let's do that. Arrives to the colonies, makes it to New York City, where he attends and attempts to, oh man. I kind of have to. Okay. But he goes to Columbia University, studies law. I can still move. You. Goes to church, does the normal thing for the colonies and people at that particular time and era do. Starts hearing about what's going on with the Loyalists and revolutionary powers. Oh, Lord. And was fervently for the revolutionary cause before the war even started. Now 1775. Lord, just give me something, people. This is taking way longer than I wanted it to. Okay, maybe I can line this up. There we go. Take out those three. Card play refunded. Nope. Once war was breaking out, shot heard around the world. Hamilton heard the call and was basically like, it's going down. So later college, I'm going to go and fight in this war. Joins with a nearby militia and was training people and soldiers to be ready for war, for battle. He was a pretty good shooter. Ends up raiding a bunch of different, with a bunch of his classmates, a bunch of different artillery areas. Ends up taking a lot of cannons away. Ends up raising a company of men, and was a big part in the defense of New York City, specifically near like Manhattan, and will participate in so many battles. Battle of Trenton, Battle of the White Plains, many battles. Battle of Princeton too, where Washington starts taking notice about this kid who's like, who is this kid, you know? This motherfucker just was an alpha, I'll put it that way. Ends up becoming a part of Washington's staff closer to like 1779. He initially didn't want to do it. He wanted to fight. He thought it was he felt it was important to have glory in the battlefield, you know, that kind of individual. But once Washington reiterated, hey, come on, it's me, I'm George Washington, he's like, alright. He didn't like it too much, to be honest, but saw it as a unique opportunity. He was pretty much just like the guy to hand letters to Congress, to help train soldiers, etc., etc. Yeah, let's go, man. Let's read by the fire. What is this game?
Robbie, what was most important to you before you were pulled into this life?
Same thing as after. My little brother Gabe. He may be on the other side of the country, but he's what keeps me going.
Very close with Marquis de Lafayette. Ultimately, at a certain point, he ends up getting his own regiment and battalion near the end of the war. And despite Washington not wanting him to fight, because he wants him alive, ends up just sneaking a bunch of men to take Yorktown, and just goes ham on them, just dominates them. How about that? Okay. Let's go to bed. He was largely there until the very, very end of the war. Robbie can't get enough, can he?
But you can't make fun of me, okay?
Fire away, Robbie.
Well, there is this online video game tournament. I was kind of wondering, will you be my player?
What the? What about Peter?
Is Peter not the obvious choice? Does he not get automatically drafted?
I don't know, but we've gotten pretty close. It doesn't feel right to not at least offer you the spot. Besides, there will be plenty of other tournaments for me and Peter to down.
So, what did I do to deserve this honor, Robbie?
Anyways, after the war, goes back to New York. Goes back to school for like a month, and then he's like, I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm doing. Passes the bar, and ended up being an individual to, well, lawyer up. And he got a lot of offers from various different individuals to you know be
Have you considered Sparky might feel the same
be
way?
part of their firm. I can't think. My goodness.
Sparky is occupying your body.
And all the while, he's basically making money being a lawyer. He's talking crap about Congress, and he's like, "Oh, this criticism, yada yada yada." Very frustrated with what ultimately would be the Articles of Confederation. I mean, his personal philosophy is like, you do need some form of a strong federal government, or some strong central government that doesn't overreach specifically, but at the very least has the strength to do what is necessary for the survival and prosperity of its citizenry. I think that's his point. It's like
Every last bit of doubt is erased from your mind.
a more free market capitalistic monarchy in a lot of ways, or some feudalistic perspective if you want to look at it. Avid fan of history. He read a lot. Who else do I need to talk to? Everyone's in the war room. Okay. Cutscene.
Status report on the evac.
Both tore out the bridges. Roads are gone. No evac happening.
We'll get you additional air support. We can fly people out.
It's a negative. Our orders have changed. We're taking a more aggressive stance this week.
He and James Madison were pretty close, and they were even closer during this particular point in time. They might have been on different sides of the ideological spectrum in a lot of ways, but ultimately they were aligned in their discontent with Congress and how ultimately it was being implemented and how the federal government was being implemented.
Now in attack position. Just don't have a visual on the target. Laying down.
A bunch of things are happening. He actually joins the Congress for a time being and ends up resigning after some time because he's just like, there's nothing, they're not doing anything. This is just nonsense what they're doing, and it's only going to be hurting people more than helping people. Who do I talk to?
I hate it even more when people don't listen to me, and good people die because of it.
And decides, you know what, I'm just going to do my own thing. Gets enough money, enough investment, ends up opening the Bank of New York, which I think is still there to this day, by the way.
Do you know how you were going to handle it?
Ends up trying to machinate and create a bunch of different conventions to ratify eventually what would be a constitution. But a lot of people weren't willing to do so, which is why he and Madison really try to push for George Washington to help get and promote a constitutional convention, which takes years, by the way. But ultimately, they end up getting it in 1787.
Hulk is more deadly than he has ever been.
Ends up effectively trying to promote and push for really bold ideas. In particular, one of his boldest claims and perspectives was, hey, if we're going to have a leader, we should have a leader for life, you know? I think his argument really was, if we're going to have this leader, we should have the leader that people are going to take seriously, that people are going to actively look, research, yada yada, and really take great care in choosing who these people will be. And that's where, obviously, Madison disagrees with a lot of the things, but what they did agree on was that the Constitution needed to happen, that there needed to be a specific role for the people to be governed by the people for the people, and that's where the Federalist Papers come in, which he writes with Madison and John Jay. Hamilton writes some of the more important ones. Madison writes most of the Federalist Papers. They all agree in it. Signed Publius. And once the Constitution is ratified, the country's kind of just starting now. And he's trying to analyze all the financial situations that the country's currently in, which is a very difficult monetary spot. Really? I don't remember putting her on a hero op. And at this point, there's just a bunch of different things that are going on. Like, the biggest issue is, like, there's so much debt from the war that should be incumbent on the state, should be incumbent on the federal government. I understand, you know, all 13 colonies are basically thinking we're 13 separate countries, you know, and a lot of people, I mean, if you people have issues with, like, the European Union now, like, just imagine what's like back then, but we have guns, you know, and fought a war for our individual liberties. So, you know, very, very complicated and very, very difficult. But during his time as the Secretary of the Treasury, which he immediately gets implemented in by George Washington in 1789 during Washington's first term as president, he's basically trying to put taxes on everything. He's trying to cut certain revenue services and trying to establish a bunch of the principles that would promote both manufacturing, in just general industry, and while also trying to keep the peace within relative reason. Hamilton, before all this, by the way, I keep forgetting, he's actually married. His wife deeply, deeply, deeply loves him. God, what is his wife's name? Sorry, I gotta look it up because it's gonna bother me. She plays a very important role in his life. Elizabeth Schuler. That's what it was. That's what it was. Okay. Oh, I forgot about a bunch of this stuff. But he's effectively and largely just trying to get the country afloat, start a federal economy, effectively, which includes tax revenues and services. Oh. Interesting. Purify. The which is defeat and purify, purification remaining. Oh. Okay. Good on you, Scarlet. See, on hard mode, this game would just be freaking impossible in this part. Sorry, Scarlet. Keep in mind, people are completely antagonistic to Hamilton, so much so that it leads to so much so that it leads to basically Hamilton and Jefferson hate each other. They absolutely hate each other, and so much so that you could argue Jefferson and Hamilton's hate for one another is the reason, quite literally, for political parties in this country. Like, the Federalists are becoming a thing, and then the Anti-Federalists are becoming a thing, and Thomas Jefferson creates a separate party called the Democratic Republicans, who colloquially would be known as, like, Jeffersonians, as a reason for this. But scandal ends up taking him out. He basically cheats on his wife. Wash is a miscarriage. Not a good look on you, bro. You know. But he still plays a hand in the political game, influencing and pushing forward with John Adams. I think he was attempting to become the president, but then there was the big issue about you're not technically born in the United States. At least Washington was. But for the most part, you know, there's a whole slew of issues. Put it that way.
Lilith will extract a price for everything she has given you. She does nothing out of charity.
I'm hoping you'll learn from this, but I know you won't.
Does anyone need health? During the issues with Europe at this time, Hamilton's trying to trying to fight for war. It's a whole mess of things, dude. Damn, Wanda. And largely, he just makes money, promotes a whole bunch of different things, playing the political game back and forth. Most famously, the last political game he would play, unfortunately for him, would lead to his death, which is he basically screws Aaron Burr out of any opportunity to become the president of the United States. And Burr and him famously duel where Hamilton shoots in the air because that's what you're supposed to do. It was more just about, hey, you dishonored me, we're gonna, you know, you're gonna get my honor back. But he basically gets killed because of it. Shot, he hits him in the spine, he's paralyzed. That was just an agonizing death for like the last couple days of his life. Just a complicated individual, Alexander Hamilton is. That's basically Hamilton in a nutshell. A brilliant, wild, very politically savvy and hyper intelligent individual. He understood people, I think, incredibly well. But I also think this led to him kind of being a little, you know, over the top when it comes to how he was going to go about doing things for what he perceived to be the betterment of the country.
Dr. Banner's transformation as one of the fallen is truly terrifying.
Like, I know what's best for you, and that's dangerous.
I'm not afraid of turmoil to greatness. Twisted image of what you desire.
Bloop.
Good to have friends.
I'm gonna just prepare for the next turn, basically. I'm gonna move this over here. Ooh. Brutal. Now, I do want to talk about how it is interesting that, like, out of all the historical figures that are getting brought up, it's Hamilton, you know? I mean, he's on our $10 bill, for Pete's sake. And I do think it's just interesting how, you know, someone who's for the federal government is getting promoted, and someone who's, you know, antagonistic to the federal government is getting his name, relatively speaking, dragged through the mud.
This is not something to be done in haste.
If KO'd. What does this mean? I don't even know how to purify the Hulk. Not my brightest move, I'll admit that. Sorry, Cap. Just completely screwed you over there for a second. I'll say any counter. One dog. That's what you need. Robert Meacham. I think that's the author's name. Punch his dog into Wanda. Health. Oh, there you are. Which health do you have? Oh, you do have quite a bit of health. That seems like a successful turn. And I would also want people to, you know, take a grain of salt with anything I say or anything that most people probably say, to be honest with you. Have faith and trust in people, but, you know, there are reasons why when people bring up certain historical things or history in general, it is tinged with a lot of biases and a lot of things that aren't always completely true. And it's tough with a lot of things that happened way before then, you know, BC kind of history, and it can be tough when it comes to more recent histories, I would probably say. And you never know, because a lot of these historical figures, you know, we weren't born around their particular point in time. So we can only assume based off of writings, based off of just what their actions have caused and what has been done. to come to the conclusion ultimately of the things that they believe in, you know? It's like, did they actually believe in these things? Well, do their actions justify it? Are there reasons for why it didn't happen, you know? Like, just little things to keep in mind and think about. Is he not dead yet? Ugh. Punch. Punch. Do I even have 88 health? Ugh, this is gonna be rough. I have that. No. God, this game is so long. Punch in the face. Cut in. I think I'll probably talk about Henry Clay and a couple of the politicians in the mid. Wait. Wait, what? Now I'm just confused. Did that really not do anything? Has infinite lives, can only be defeated by... Wait, what? Wait, he can't be hurt. What do I do now? I really have no idea what to do now. Each enemy near... Oh. Maybe I could just do that? It's the only one that makes any logical sense to me. Is he gonna be able to attack again? Yep, is that death? Ah, damn it. Okay, I should still have enough. Just gonna wha-bam those guys. Is this it? Okay, so that's the move. That is the move. God, this game's so confusing sometimes. Well, Cap's still standing. America, baby. I think I'm going to talk about Henry Clay next, and then the other three politicians of that particular time and era. I mean, I could talk about like John Jay, maybe even Aaron Burr, Benedict Arnold, even some of the more lesser known ones I could talk about, but they're just not as interesting, to be honest. Yeah, I think I'm going to talk about Henry Clay.
This is why Sarah has such high blood pressure.
Also because she's like hundreds of years old, but okay.
You're okay?
I will be.
Thank God he has pants.
So will he.
Hey, we're doing pretty good. Alright guys, we're going to just stop right here. We're going to continue on in just a little bit, but God bless. Hope you guys like and subscribe. Again, any tips, just let me know. Maybe things I can do better. Until then, y'all rock. Later.